All right, ready to dive deep. Today, we're tunneling into secure communication for mining operations.
Yeah, mining operations.
We're talking the tech that keeps things running smoothly, whether it's here on Earth or on some asteroid mining outpost a million miles away.
Right, millions of miles away.
And to guide us, we've got a chapter straight from Secure Communication Protocols for Mining Operations.
It's a fascinating area.
Yeah.
Especially because it's so often overlooked.
Right.
Everyone thinks about the giant drills and the robots, but without secure communication, the whole operation it grinds to a halt.
Yeah.
And the further we push into these extreme environments, the higher the stakes become.
Absolutely. I was just reading about how in space mining, a tiny data corruption, just a tiny one, could send a multi-million-dollar robot veering off course.
Oh, yeah.
We're not just talking about data security here.
No.
We're talking about operational safety on a whole other level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The book breaks down the importance of secure communication into three key areas: data integrity and reliability, threat mitigation, and the unique challenges of these extreme environments. We're talking space, deep sea, the works.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Data integrity and reliability.
Right.
These seem crucial, but what are we really talking about in the context of, say, a deep sea mining operation?
Okay, so imagine you're relying on sensor data
Okay.
to map out a valuable mineral deposit on the ocean floor.
Right.
If that data is corrupted or the communication link is unreliable, you could miss out on the entire deposit.
Oh, wow.
Or worse, make a decision based on faulty information.
Right.
That leads to a costly and dangerous mistake.
It's like the difference between striking gold and ending up with a pile of worthless rocks.
Right? Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the financial implications. Think about the potential environmental impact of a deep-sea mining operation gone wrong because of bad data.
Yeah.
Secure communication is essential for ensuring that these operations are conducted safely and responsibly.
All right, so we've got these high stakes.
Yeah.
And the need for reliable data. But then there's the whole issue of threats, right? We're not
Right.
just talking about accidents.
Yeah.
We're talking about intentional sabotage.
Right.
Espionage.
Absolutely, yeah. Think about it. You've got companies investing billions in these cutting-edge mining technologies.
Right.
They're going to want to protect their secrets.
Of course.
And then you've got the potential for state-sponsored actors trying to disrupt operations or steal valuable resources.
Oh, wow.
The threat landscape is constantly evolving.
It's like a real-life cyberpunk thriller down there.
It really is. And this is where things like encryption and authentication come into play.
Right.
We need to make sure that the data is protected from prying eyes and that only authorized personnel can access sensitive information.
Okay, that makes sense. But let's not forget about the elephant in the room.
Right.
These extreme environments themselves. I mean, how do you even begin to establish a secure communication system when you're dealing with the vast distances of space or the crushing pressures of the deep sea?
Yeah, these are definitely not your average Wi-Fi hotspots.
Right.
Take space, for example.
Okay.
The sheer distance between Earth and a mining operation on Mars introduces incredible latency.
Right.
We're talking minutes,
Wow.
not milliseconds,
Mm.
for a signal to travel back and forth.
So how do you even control a mining robot in real time with that kind of delay?
You can't rely on traditional communication methods.
Right.
That's where things like delay-tolerant networking, DTN, come in.
Yeah.
Instead of expecting instant responses, DTN utilizes a store and forward approach,
Okay.
breaking data into packets that hop between nodes until they reach their destination.
It's like sending messages in space capsules, each one carrying a piece of the message,
Right.
hoping it eventually reaches the intended recipient.
It's a fascinating solution, and it highlights the ingenuity required to overcome these extreme challenges. And it's not just about distance.
No.
We're also talking about interference from solar flares,
Right.
cosmic radiation,
Wow.
the pressure and salinity of the deep sea. All sorts of factors can disrupt communication.
It's like trying to send a text message through a hurricane.
Exactly. And that's why we need to go beyond the basics of secure communication and explore the more advanced technologies being developed for these environments. Things like quantum key distribution, advanced encryption standards, and decentralized communication protocols are all being explored to address these challenges.
Okay, this is where things start to get really interesting.
Yeah,
We're talking about space-age tech being used to secure communication for miners on Earth and beyond.
that's right.
Let's start with the fundamentals. What are the core principles of secure communication that apply across the board,
Sure.
whether we're talking about a terrestrial mine or a lunar outpost?
Well, you're already familiar with the basics. Confidentiality, integrity, authentication, and availability.
Right.
But what's interesting is how these principles take on new dimensions when we apply them to these extreme environments.
Okay.
For instance, in a traditional setting, authentication might just be about verifying your username and password.
Right.
But in a space mining operation, you might need to authenticate every single component of a robot
Wow.
to ensure that it hasn't been tampered with or replaced with a malicious duplicate.
So it's like having a digital passport for every bolt and circuit board.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And with integrity, it's not just about ensuring data hasn't been accidentally corrupted during transmission.
Right.
We're talking about protecting against deliberate manipulation.
Okay.
Imagine a competitor subtly altering your sensor readings to make you think a rich mineral deposit is actually worthless.
Oh, wow.
The consequences could be devastating.
It's like a high-tech version of salting a gold mine.
That's a great way to put it. And then there's availability. Ensuring the communication system is always up and running no matter what. In a deep-sea mining operation, if your communication link goes down, you could lose control of your entire operation,
Right.
putting lives and equipment at risk.
So redundancy is key. Multiple communication paths,
Yeah.
backup systems, all that jazz.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not just about having backup systems.
Right.
It's about designing the entire system with resilience in mind.
Okay.
Think about the communication protocols themselves.
Okay.
They need to be robust enough to handle intermittent connections, signal loss, and even intentional jamming attempts.
So it's like building a communication system that can survive an earthquake, a cyber attack, and a cosmic ray burst all at the same time.
That's a pretty accurate analogy.
Yeah.
And that's why secure communication is so crucial in these extreme environments.
Yeah.
It's the foundation upon which everything else is built.
All right, we've got the principles, but what do these communication protocols actually look like in the real world? Let's start with space. What are some of the specific protocols being used to keep those Mars rovers rolling and those asteroid miners digging?
Well, we've already touched on delay-tolerant networking,
Right.
but there's a whole suite of space data link protocols,
Okay.
specifically designed for secure communication in space.
All right.
These are standardized by the Consultative Committee for Space Data Systems,
Okay.
or CCSDS for short.
Okay.
And they cover everything from telemetry,
Right.
which is data sent from spacecraft to Earth,
Mm-hmm.
to telecommand,
Okay.
which are commands sent from Earth to spacecraft.
So it's like a space communication rule book, making sure everyone is speaking the same language and playing by the same rules.
Exactly. And these protocols are constantly being updated and refined as we explore further into space and encounter new challenges.
Okay, so we've got DTN and the CCSDS standards. But what about the really cool stuff? I mean, we're talking about space here.
Right.
Where does quantum communication fit into all of this?
Yes. Quantum communication.
Yeah.
This is where we start to blur the line between science fiction and reality.
Right.
Quantum key distribution, or QKD,
Try.
uses the principles of quantum mechanics to create encryption keys that are virtually unbreakable.
Wow.
It leverages the phenomenon of quantum entanglement,
Right.
where two particles are linked in such a way that any attempt to observe or intercept them instantly alters their state, alerting both parties to the intrusion.
So it's like having a security system built into the fabric of the universe itself.
It's a mind-blowing concept. And while it's still in the early stages of development, agencies like NASA and the European Space Agency are actively exploring its potential for secure communication in space.
That's incredible. I can't wait to see how that technology develops. But for now, let's bring things back down to Earth, literally. What are some of the specific protocols and technologies being used to secure communication in terrestrial mining operations?
Well, terrestrial mining operations face their own unique set of challenges.
Right.
We're often dealing with vast, geographically dispersed sites
Okay.
with limited infrastructure.
Right.
This is where technologies like wireless mesh networks and the industrial Internet of Things, or IIoT, come into play.
So we're talking about creating a network of interconnected devices and sensors that can communicate with each other,
Right.
even in remote locations.
Exactly. And to secure these networks, we're using a combination of traditional security measures like firewalls and intrusion detection systems, along with more specialized protocols like MQTT with Transport Layer Security,
Mhm.
TLS.
Okay.
MQTT is a lightweight messaging protocol designed for low bandwidth, high latency environments,
Okay.
which makes it ideal for remote mining operations.
So it's like a chat app for mining equipment.
Right, right.
but with an extra layer of security to keep the conversations private.
That's a good way to think about it.
Hmm.
And because these devices are often operating in harsh environments and handling sensitive data, robust encryption and authentication are essential.
This is all fascinating. We're talking about a whole ecosystem of technologies working together to keep mining operations running smoothly and securely,
Right, yeah.
whether it's on Earth or in the depths of space.
It's a complex and evolving field, but it's one that's critical to the future of mining as we push the boundaries of what's possible.
All right, I think we've laid a solid foundation here. We've covered the key principles of secure communication,
Hmm.
the unique challenges of extreme environments, and some of the specific protocols and technologies being used in space and terrestrial mining. But there's still so much more to explore.
Absolutely, yeah.
And in part 2 of our deep dive, we'll delve into some fascinating real-world case studies to see how these technologies are being implemented in action.
Yeah, that'll be great.
We'll be back soon to unpack those exciting examples. Until then, keep those deep diving minds engaged.
Sounds good.
Welcome back, deep divers. Last time we laid the groundwork, we were talking about the core principles of secure communication
Right.
and the unique challenges of these extreme environments.
Yes.
Now let's get our hands dirty with some real-world examples.
I'm excited to dig into these case studies. They really bring to life how these concepts are being applied in some of the most demanding scenarios imaginable.
Exactly. So let's start with a classic. NASA's Deep Space Network, or DSN. It's iconic, these giant radio antennas
Yeah,
communicating with spacecraft across the solar system.
across the solar system.
What are some of the security challenges unique to communicating over such vast distances?
Well, the DSN isn't just about distance.
Okay.
It's about a fundamentally different communication paradigm.
Right.
Imagine trying to troubleshoot a technical issue on a Mars rover,
Okay.
but every instruction takes 10 minutes to reach the rover,
Oh, wow.
and another 10 minutes to get a response.
It's 20 minutes.
You can't just send a quick fix.
Right.
You need a system that's robust and resilient to delays.
It's like playing a game of chess where each move takes an hour.
Yeah,
You really have to think ahead and anticipate potential problems.
precisely. That's where those space data link protocols we mentioned earlier come in.
Right.
They're designed to handle these long delays
Mm-hmm.
and ensure data integrity even when signals are weak or intermittent.
Okay.
There's also the issue of cosmic radiation,
Right.
solar flares,
Yeah.
all sorts of things that can interfere with transmissions.
Right.
The DSN has to employ error correction codes and redundancy to make sure that critical data gets through.
It's like building a communication system that can survive a cosmic storm.
Very accurate analogy.
Yeah.
And when it comes to security, the DSN has to be incredibly vigilant.
Right.
Imagine the consequences if someone were able to hijack the signal
Oh, wow.
and send false commands to a spacecraft. We're talking about potentially losing billions of dollars of equipment, not to mention the setback to scientific progress.
That's a chilling thought. It's like a space thriller waiting to happen. What kind of measures are in place to prevent that kind of scenario?
Well, the DSN uses a multi-layered approach to security. Strong encryption is a given.
Right.
But there are also sophisticated authentication protocols
Okay.
to ensure that only authorized personnel can send commands.
Mm-hmm.
And there are constant monitoring systems in place to detect any anomalies in communication patterns that could indicate an intrusion attempt.
So it's not just about building a strong wall.
No.
It's about having a whole army of guards.
Right.
Constantly watching for intruders.
Exactly. The DSN is a fantastic example of how security principles are being applied at the very edge of human exploration.
Okay, that's one incredible example. But now, let's shift gears to something a bit closer to home, literally. You mentioned Rio Tinto's autonomous mining operations earlier. How are they using secure communication to manage those driverless vehicles?
Rio Tinto is a pioneer in this field,
Right.
and their operations highlight a different set of challenges.
Okay.
It's not about the vast distances of space,
Right.
but the complexities of coordinating dozens, even hundreds, of autonomous vehicles working together in a dynamic environment.
It's like a giant synchronized ballet of robots,
Right.
but with real-world consequences if something goes wrong.
Absolutely. You have driverless trucks hauling tons of ore,
Right.
robotic drills excavating rock, all working in close proximity to each other.
Yeah.
Any communication breakdown could lead to a collision or a disruption in the workflow,
Right.
costing the company time and money.
So what kind of communication technologies are they using to keep things running smoothly? We talked about wireless mesh networks earlier. Are those in play here?
Absolutely. Wireless mesh networks are ideal for these types of environments
Oh.
because they can be deployed quickly and easily, even in rugged terrain.
Right.
Each vehicle acts as a node in the network,
Okay.
relaying messages to each other and to central control systems.
So it's like a self-forming web of communication adapting to the changing environment.
Precisely. But it's not just about connectivity.
Right.
It's about security.
Of course.
Rio Tinto uses a combination of industrial-grade encryption
Okay.
and authentication protocols
Mm-hmm.
to protect the network from intrusion and ensure that only authorized vehicles and personnel can access sensitive data.
So we're talking about preventing someone from hacking into a driverless truck
Yeah,
and sending it on a joyride through the mine site.
exactly. It might sound far-fetched, but the potential consequences are very real.
Yeah.
That's why Rio Tinto invests heavily in cybersecurity,
Right.
constantly updating their systems and protocols to stay ahead of potential threats.
It's like an ongoing arms race between the security experts and the hackers.
That's a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
And it's not just about external threats.
No.
You also have to consider the potential for insider threats
Right.
or accidental data leaks.
Right.
Rio Tinto has to have robust systems in place to monitor activity, detect anomalies, and respond quickly to any security breaches.
Okay, so we've got space, we've got terrestrial mining,
Mm-hmm.
but there's another frontier we haven't touched on yet, the deep sea.
Yes.
What kind of communication challenges are unique to that environment?
Well, the deep sea presents a whole different set of hurdles.
Right.
It's an incredibly hostile environment.
Yeah.
Crushing pressure,
Wow.
freezing temperatures,
Right.
and near total darkness.
Wow.
And perhaps the biggest challenge, electromagnetic waves,
Okay.
the kind used for radio communication,
Right.
don't travel well through water.
So no Wi-Fi for the deep sea robots. How do they communicate with the surface?
They have to rely on acoustic communication,
Okay.
basically using sound waves to transmit data.
Okay.
It's much slower than radio communication.
Right.
And the bandwidth is limited, but it's the only option that works reliably at those depths.
So it's like sending messages by yelling really loudly, but underwater.
It's a bit more sophisticated than that,
Okay.
but you get the idea.
Yeah.
The sound waves have to be carefully modulated and encoded to carry data.
Right. Mm.
And there's a lot of signal processing involved to filter out noise and interference.
I can only imagine how challenging it must be to design a secure communication system for that environment.
It is incredibly challenging.
Yeah.
And it's an area that's still being actively researched and developed. But the basic principles of secure communication still apply. Confidentiality, integrity, authentication, and availability.
So even though the medium is different,
Right.
sound waves instead of radio waves,
Yeah,
we're still talking about the same fundamental goals.
that's right.
Keeping the data secret, ensuring it's accurate,
Mhm.
verifying who's sending it,
Right.
and making sure it gets through.
Exactly. And these principles become even more crucial in an environment like the deep sea, where the stakes are incredibly high.
Yeah.
We're talking about multi-million-dollar underwater robots
Right.
operating in remote locations, often in challenging conditions. Any communication failure could have disastrous consequences.
Okay, I'm starting to see a pattern here. Whether it's space, terrestrial mining,
Yeah,
or deep sea exploration, the core principles of secure communication remain the same,
they do.
but the specific technologies and approaches have to adapt to the unique demands of each environment.
Right.
It's like having a universal toolkit,
Yeah,
but you need to know which tools to use and how to use them effectively in each situation.
that's a great way to put it. And it highlights the importance of having experts who understand both the technical aspects of secure communication and the operational realities of these different mining environments.
It's like having a bilingual translator who can speak both tech and mining.
Exactly. And that's why these case studies are so valuable. They give us a glimpse into how these principles are being applied in the real world, and they highlight the ongoing challenges and opportunities in this exciting field.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
From NASA's Deep Space Network to Rio Tinto's autonomous mining operations to the complexities of communicating in the deep sea, we've seen how secure communication is enabling innovation and pushing the boundaries of human exploration. But there's still one more frontier to explore: the future.
That's right. In part 3 of our deep dive, we'll shift our focus to the emerging trends and technologies that are poised to revolutionize secure communication in mining and beyond. We're talking AI-driven security, quantum communication networks, edge computing, and more.
I can't wait to delve into those fascinating topics. Until then, keep those deep diving minds engaged. Welcome back, deep divers. We've journeyed from the depths of the ocean to the vastness of space, exploring the real-world applications of secure communication in mining. Now, let's set our sights on the horizon. What's next for this critical field?
Yeah, the future of secure communication, it's bursting with potential. We're on the cusp of a technological revolution that will reshape how we connect and protect our operations, in extreme environments and beyond.
Last time, we touched on some pretty mind-bending concepts like quantum communication. Let's dive deeper into those future trends, starting with AI-driven security. What does that look like in action?
Well, imagine a mining operation where the communication system is constantly learning and adapting, like
Okay.
a living organism. That's the power of AI. Instead of relying solely on pre-programmed rules and signatures, AI-driven security systems can analyze vast amounts of data, identify patterns, and detect anomalies in real time.
So it's like having a security team that's always one step ahead of the attackers, constantly evolving and improving its defenses.
Exactly.
Yeah,
AI can spot those subtle deviations in communication patterns
right.
that might indicate a sophisticated cyber attack even before any real damage is done. And it's not just about detection. AI can also automate responses, isolating compromised systems, strengthening encryption, and even predicting future attack vectors.
It's like having a digital guardian angel watching over the entire operation.
That's a great analogy. And as AI technology continues to advance, we can expect even more sophisticated security solutions,
Right.
like predictive modeling to anticipate potential threats,
Wow.
and self-healing networks that can automatically recover from attacks.
That sounds almost too good to be true. But let's move on to another futuristic concept, quantum communication networks. We talked about quantum key distribution, or QKD, earlier. How close are we to seeing this technology deployed in real-world mining operations?
QKD is moving from the realm of theoretical physics to practical applications
Right.
at an astonishing pace. We've already seen successful demonstrations of satellite-based QKD, and several companies are working on commercializing this technology.
But remind me why QKD is such a game changer. What makes it so much more secure than traditional encryption methods?
Well, traditional encryption relies on complex mathematical algorithms to scramble data. But these algorithms are ultimately vulnerable to brute force attacks, especially as computing power continues to increase. QKD, on the other hand, leverages the fundamental laws of quantum mechanics to create encryption keys that are virtually unbreakable.
Because any attempt to eavesdrop on the key would instantly alter the quantum state of the particles,
Right.
alerting both parties to the intrusion. It's like having a security system built into the very fabric of reality.
Exactly. And this opens up a whole new world of possibilities for secure communication, not just in mining, but in any field where data security is paramount. Imagine unhackable communication networks for financial transactions, healthcare records, military operations, and more.
It's mind-blowing to think about the potential. But let's shift gears one last time and talk about edge computing. How will this trend of processing data closer to the source impact secure communication in mining?
Edge computing is all about decentralization, bringing the power of computation to the edge of the network, closer to the devices and sensors that are generating the data. In mining, this means processing data directly on the mining equipment itself, rather than sending it back to a central server.
So instead of having all the sensitive data traveling across potentially vulnerable communication channels, we're keeping it localized
Right.
and processing it on the spot.
Precisely. This not only reduces the risk of data breaches, but it also improves efficiency and responsiveness. Imagine a deep-sea mining robot that can analyze sensor data and make real-time decisions without having to wait for instructions from the surface.
It's like giving the robot its own brain,
Yeah.
allowing it to operate more autonomously and intelligently.
Exactly. And from a security perspective, edge computing allows for more granular control.
Okay.
You can tailor security measures to specific devices and applications,
Right.
minimizing the attack surface and making it much more difficult for attackers to compromise the entire system.
It's like having a personalized security detail for each piece of equipment. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from the core principles of secure communication to the futuristic trends that are shaping the next frontier of mining. But before we wrap things up, I want to ask you a more philosophical question. Why is secure communication so vital in today's world?
Secure communication is more than just a technical challenge. It's a fundamental pillar of trust and reliability in our increasingly interconnected world. As we rely more and more on data-driven technologies, we're entrusting our personal information, our financial transactions, and even our critical infrastructure to these digital networks. Without secure communication, this entire ecosystem becomes vulnerable.
It's like the foundation upon which our digital society is built. If that foundation cracks, the whole structure could crumble.
That's a powerful image, and it highlights the importance of ongoing vigilance, innovation, and collaboration. We need to stay ahead of the threats, constantly evolving our security measures and pushing the boundaries of what's possible. And we need to work together, sharing knowledge and expertise to ensure that our communication networks are resilient and trustworthy.
It's a call to action for all of us, not just those working directly in the field of cybersecurity, but everyone who uses and relies on these digital technologies.
Absolutely. We all have a role to play in building a more secure and trustworthy digital future.
And that, my friends, brings us to the end of our deep dive into secure communication for mining operations. We've journeyed from the depths of the ocean to the vastness of space, explored real-world applications, and glimpsed into the future of this critical field. As we venture further into these extreme environments, remember that secure communication isn't just a technical detail, it's the lifeline that connects us, protects us, and enables us to push the boundaries of human ingenuity. Until next time, keep those deep-diving minds engaged.